Hey folks, it's Lindsay Ellison back in the building again. Another SPS Mental Health Moment. I get the chance to catch up with the best and brightest from around not only the area, but throughout the country. But this time we're going to keep it local as it relates to mid-Michigan and 517. I'm talking about Streets 517. I want to introduce the leader of that great organization, Mr. Patrick Sauer. Join us. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Lindsay. How are you?
Great. You're looking all rated out, man. With your,
Hey, listen, it's a neutral color around here. It's not the red and black of Sexton. It's not the blue and yellow of Eastern. It's not the baby blue and red of Everett. It's pretty neutral,
Well, neutral is good for you because you are in so many places. You're all around. You're everywhere that the happenings are going. I think we probably should ride together next time we do stuff. We're always at the same places out here.
Seems like it.
So Streets 517, what a name, gets anyone's attention, but I think people are probably really surprised when they learn more about the origin of it. So tell the viewers about Streets 517.
Yeah, so Streets 517, we're a youth organization that's dedicated specifically to the young people that are coming up in our city. So I think when we think about streets, we think about the fact that these are avenues in which people take or get on in order to get to wherever they're going. And so I think between things like that, and then also just, having anything with our area code, we want to make sure that we're proud of where we are. I think oftentimes people will look at the city of Lansing as a place to leave, a place to escape from, or on the flip side, people see it only as a source of maybe their own entertainment, whether it's restaurants and different things like that, or whatever. But for us, we see it as a place that's worthy of an investment. We see it as a place that is also a place that's oftentimes underserved. I got a phone call coming in right now from one of my students. Isn't that funny?
That's okay. Man, all they want to do. I get it. So let's kind of take a break, because I know throughout all this you're going to be saying some things that are noteworthy. So I want to kind of go back on your introduction. First of all, that's great. Me being a transplant to Lansing, being originally from Detroit, it's funny that what I found Lansing to be as a refuge, because being a native Detroiter, and I talk to my partners in the city all the time, man, as a young black male, it was hard coming up. And I celebrated my 24th birthday like, oh, I made it. There was always that window of 18 to 24 young black males. But what I took from Lansing when I got here, I was part of Grand Homes administration. And I was like, man, this community is cool. It's really diverse. It's very well connected because, people know each other from middle school through high school, and they just know each other. So it's funny that there's one opinion that is, but my opinion is like, man, once I got here, I was like, I met my wife here, we're no longer together, have my daughter here, but this is home, because as an adult, you can live and go anywhere you want, but I choose to make this home. So I think that's interesting. So talk about these young people, man. Two young people in particular that I'm very high on, and I know are very close to you. I want to say David, last name is Smith, and Terry McCord. Those are my guys. And when you talk about how much of salt to the earth type young men they are, and the fact that they sing your praise and they had a relationship, talk about what it's like to make that connection with young men and young women like that in this community, and what it means to have those relationships.
Yeah, I think, man, I think as you look at anything that is, I don't know, I would have to think about it a little bit, but I think as you really look at any industry that is successful, I think a lot of times a key contributor is relationships, and being able to work well with people, being able to have good relationships, being able to build trust, things like that. And I think, even as I look at youth development, there's one consistent thing that kind of across the board is a general research consensus. And that is that for students to succeed, the average student needs 5 adults in their life, 5 really consistent, really dedicated adults. So, you look at somebody like a Terry, who you mentioned, just graduated from Eastern. He is, man, he's one of the best. He's a humble kid. He's driven. He's all these types of things. And I don't think that's by coincidence, because you look at the people who are around him, he's got mom and dad in the home, and mom and dad are great, and mom and dad are invested in him. They're on him. They're making him do stuff. There's some times where he can't come out and do stuff with us because he's got to mow the yard, stuff like that. but so we look at that and we say, okay, well, in a perfect world, much like Terry, let's say, a lot of these students would be having, about half, 40% of that would be addressed in the home with mom and dad. But at the end of the day, we live in a city where we've got 60+% single parent rate. And so at that point, we can have a conversation about who's in the home, and mostly it's a woman, it's a single mom, it's an auntie, it's an older sister, it's a grandma. And we could have the conversation about where a lot of our Black men have gone. A lot of people who look like me don't necessarily want to have that conversation, just because there's been some systemic reasons as to why they're not around. But either way you slice it, you look at it and you go, man, there's a huge gap. There's a huge need for relationships. And I just don't know of a program in the world that in and of itself and on its own merits can change a person's life. But I firmly believe that a relationship can. So we want to be able to come alongside these young people. That means that we're going to spend a lot of time where they're at. That's probably why you and I see each other and run into each other so much is short of COVID-19 and truancy, you give me, between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. during the school year, I know where high school kids are at, like they're going to be at the school. They're going to be, running the halls. They're going to be giving people headaches. They're going to be doing all that type of stuff. And so at that point, we want to be in the schools. You talk about Friday nights with football or basketball or whatever else. Kids are at games. So if kids are at games, we're going to be at games. And it's all kind of in this big overarching idea of saying we just want to build relationships with kids. We want to help them navigate through life, offer any sort of insight, mentorship, any of that type of direction that we can possibly give. We want to be able to do that. And sometimes that means that we find ourselves in situations that aren't always the most fun, like when we're, when we get calls at 2:00 in the morning from a kid who, is really angry and he's about to go do something silly or foolish or whatever, we're going to answer those calls. And more than likely, we're going to show up wherever we need to show up in order to do what we can do.
Wow. Well, you said so many great things in that, but the one thing that just stays in the front of my mind is the statistic you share that it takes about 5 adults.
Yeah.
We know no matter how big your family are, you can only have one male, one female, one mom, one dad. Yeah. Which means that there's a huge opening, and kind of bringing along with what you're saying as far as where we see these people at. My question to you, Patrick, is for those who are viewing who decide they want to help Streets 517 or decide they want to be more engaged, how do you go about gaining that credibility? Because you and I both know it's one thing to be in the schools, but it's another thing to be well received by these young people when you're there. So for someone who wants to look at getting involved and looking at connecting, how do they gain that credibility, if you will, street cred, play on words, if you will, to be able to get in there and be able to make an impact?
Yeah, man, I think you got to really come in with the right intent. I think you've got to come in with the right heart. And I also think you have to come in with the right mindset. I think you look at these schools that we're in, Sexton and Everett and Eastern. We do a lot of stuff at Waverly as well. These are schools that have a rich tradition in a ton of things, not just sports, but also in different programs. And, Everett during their homecoming stuff, they've got awesome traditions. And you talk to people who graduated from these schools, anytime over the last 50 years and especially those big reds, they're going to tell you, should have been a big red, man. They're going to be loud about it too. And so there's this pride that comes with these places. And so I think you have to know what you're getting yourself into. I think you have to understand and do some sort of, in the business world, we're going to call it market research, right? We're going to have to understand how, in our setting, oftentimes I'll talk to people who will say, hey, I want to do, I want to run this, or I want to get this program set up in these areas and whatever. And I'll always tell people, like, you got to understand how the hood works. Like, if you don't, then this just isn't the place for you. Like, if you don't understand, hood politics, if you don't understand how stuff like that works, then you're just not going to really make it last. Because we have to remember that these kids, specifically kids who are coming up in these areas, they're so accustomed to transient adults that for them,
that term, so for people who don't understand that.
Yeah. So transient adults is just, they're used to the fact that there's just waves of adults coming in and out of their life. kind of this revolving door of they're here for a moment and then they're gone. You know, they're here because they want to provide the service, and then once they do, they're gone. They want to do this meal program, and then they're gone at the end of the summer. Oftentimes even in the home. And that's where it gets really kind of messy inside of the life of a human. But so at that point, we need to understand that if we're going to be in these spaces, we've got to be willing to understand that we're not just here for the good moments of the, you know, getting the mic at the homecoming pep rally. But maybe we also need to understand that we're going to have to sit in a room where, you know, two boys just got done fighting and we're helping them work it out and figure out some sort of restorative process.
Patrick, I want to stay on that point for a second. You're absolutely right. What I do when I start a relationship with an athlete I may be working with or a team, man, the first couple of weeks, to your point about market research, man, I'm just showing up.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just being, and I think what's hard for a lot of professionals is that they look at the success they have outside of the school. Well, I'm a CEO of this, I'm this and that, and they expect to get that same response. Them kids like, oh, you got to show me. So I think it's important that you can learn to just be available and accessible for a while, and then you can get to the point where your words can matter, because they're so used to so many people. And they don't care about your degrees. They don't care about, you know, what you did somewhere else. They want to know, man, are you consistently coming? And then the best thing in the world, and I'll get back to you, is when a kid turns around and look at you and say, are you coming to the game?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know, and what that means. I just think it's important.
And that's one of the reasons, like, we'll tell our staff, you know, we just had a big kind of informational meeting for people who are looking to volunteer with us this upcoming year. And one of the things that I always tell people is, like, number one, we believe that we have to earn the right to be heard. Like, we need to understand that if we as adults, you know, even for some of these people who, like a Terry, who were kind of transitioning from a student to being on staff with us and kind of taking him through, you know, this upcoming year of kind of a leadership journey with him, like, you still have to understand that you're an adult entering into the world of a young person. That's their world. Like, that's 100% their world. And so for us,
Patrick, I'm with you on that. I just want to emphasize that you have to earn the right to be heard. That is so counterculture to people who've had success, meaning that you're supposed to respect me because I know we kind of rehashing something, but I can't let that go without re-emphasizing.
And it's the thing of man, it's wild. You to watch adults enter into these spaces with the assumption that, well, I'm an adult, these kids need to listen to me. And one of the things that I love about being in areas where we're at is that we've got kids who are going to keep it a bean, whether you like it or not. And sometimes that means that you're going to hear some things that, you know, a kid who, if he's not feeling you, he's going to let you know. Like, that's what I love about these kids, is that life is far too real for them to be anything but. And so at that point, if they're not feeling you, they're going to let you know. And sometimes it's not going to be in the most tactful way. It's not going to be in the most respectful way, but at least you're going to know.
And I think best thing to that point, the best thing is if you can earn the credibility from the kids on your behalf. You need them to advocate for you, like, oh, no, my man is good, you know?
Exactly.
So how do I, as an adult, not get so caught up in my ego where I need to get their praise and their approval early on? Because see, what you can do, you can lose people. Say, them kids didn't even appreciate me. Them kids, like, you know, like, nobody, we get it, but how do I almost humble myself going in to where I can be okay with the kids not paying attention and caring at first?
Yeah, I think the first step needs to be, I think you have to be willing to serve first. I think everything that we do in terms of, you know, getting into new spaces, or, you know, we wanted to get into the detention center, or we wanted to get into, you know, maybe we want to branch into middle school stuff at some point, whatever that may be. But for us, we're going to enter into a space first with the intent to serve. So, hey, listen, is there some trash cans we can push around in the cafeteria? Is there some water bottles on the football field sideline that we can fill up during the game? Can we hold can we, you know, do kickbacks on shooting drills in the gym where we're just sitting there just passing balls out?
That's powerful. I just want to just stop for a second and say that serves two purposes. It gets you the intro, but also weeds out some people too.
Absolutely.
Because that's not really sexy for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when I get people who want to come and volunteer and I say, okay, are you cool with nobody knowing your name for 6 months?
Wow.
I mean, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to this idea of, would you rather be faithful or famous? And if, I mean, just be honest. Like, there's a lot of people who are just saying, no, I want the mic. Like, I want to be in front of a crowd. I want to be the person, we do these Monday night meetings that I'm sure we'll get into where they're topical on content and whatever. And we've got people who are like, well, I want to do the talk at the end. I want to have the mic at the end, and I want to be the person delivering the message or the whatever at the end. And oftentimes what I'll tell people is I'll say, yeah, we can get there. I mean, like, if you've got the skills and the aptitude to do stuff like that, sure, I want to platform as many people as we can. But I also want to make sure that you're really here for the right reasons. And so would you be willing to go push that trash can in Sexton's cafeteria? Without, and within that, you can use it to, say hi to kids, get to know kids, talk about the game, talk about whatever. And so it's a double thing for us in that level, because it gives us an opportunity. If I'm pushing a cart and I see Terry and I know that, he just had a basketball game, I'll be like, hey, Terry, how'd you play last night? Even if I already know, even if I was in the stands, I'm still going to ask the question just to engage with him and just to talk to him. And so now all of a sudden you've got these kids who are seeing, our leaders and our volunteers and different people who are with us, who oftentimes they don't even know that they're a part of anything other than whatever that service is. And they just go, wait, aren't you the person who was running the chain gang on Thursday night for the freshman game where no one actually shows up to?
Yep.
Like, and they're like, oh yeah. And so at that point, that's how they start to get to see us. And so at that point, yeah, you definitely are weeding a bunch of people out, because there's going to be people who are going, well, I've got a message. I've got a word that I need to tell these people. And I got something that they need to know. And oftentimes I'll always tell people, like, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter what you have. What these kids need is different than what maybe you have. What these kids need is somebody who's just going to show up.
I want to stay on your point. Well, first of all, the second chapter of my new book, the SPS the Guide to Mental Toughness in Sports and Life's Post-COVID.
Hey, plug that book, baby. Plug that book.
Hey, I couldn't help it. Because guess what? The second chapter is called Service and Sacrifice.
Come on.
Talking about, to your point, and when you talk about being faithful or famous, what people have to realize is that you got to be faithful first, or you can be famous. Because what comes with fame don't mean you're going to be faithful.
Right.
So you make a good point. So let's talk about what our young people need and what they're going to need as we forecast. And I do want to talk about your Monday nights, and maybe that could be a precursor to the topic. But what are you forecasting, Patrick, our young people are going to need in this post-COVID society when we get to that point where now we're, quote-unquote, back in school? Now we're finally dealing with the tragedy that a lot of these young people experienced when they were at home, distant learning, losing loved ones, etc. I mean, what are you forecasting is going to be like in the next few months when we try to get back to some form of normalcy?
Yeah, I think we need to first collectively understand that what we perceive to be normal is gone. I don't care what, I don't care what decisions are necessarily made. The reality is that the 2019-2020 school year was one of the wildest we've ever seen. I think that the 2021 school year is going to be even more so, because what's going to happen is we're walking into an environment where there are so many unknowns. And so even though there are some unknowns, we also know what we've done, March till now anyways. And so how do we integrate normalcy with what we do know now from COVID and stuff like that? I think you're going to see some hybrid education. You're going to see maybe some class time mixed with some online stuff. I think you're going to see, and I think we've seen it a lot this summer so far, is I think you've got people who are craving an outlet. They're intrinsically, I think we're wired for relationships, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, that obviously manifests differently, but we're all wired to be connected to somebody. And I think what ended up happening with a lot of COVID was, I'm sure you've heard, different, Facebook preachers and stuff like that, people who are, always spouting off and stuff like that on Facebook and social media. But I've heard a motif a lot lately of we've all been so afraid to be exposed by the coronavirus. or are exposed to it, right? Like we're taking all these precautions so that we don't get it. But ultimately, I think COVID-19 has exposed a lot of us. I think it's exposed. I think it's exposed how we operate as organizations. I think it exposes a lot of the flaws within education. I think it exposes a lot of the stuff that's going on in families. You know, offhand, I'm 34, and I know 2 or 3 couples who are all my age. We went to college together. Who throughout the process of COVID-19, they're now at a place where they're looking to get a divorce. They spent these last couple months just locked in with each other, and if they didn't have the outlet of distraction to go to work or to take the kids to soccer or to do this or to do that, they're now forced where they just have to sit together. It's been messy for a lot of people. I think on the positive side, I think you've got people who are craving real, authentic relationships to say, I've been sitting in this house by myself for a long time. I'm itching to do anything. So I think you're going to see stuff coming out of all of this, whenever that may be. I think you're going to see an uptick in a lot of these types of things where it's going to involve people. Anything that we can do where we're gathering people. One of the things that we realized when we made the transition to kind of more virtual platform stuff for what we do, man, it was hard. Like, it was hard because we're combating a lot of things. We've got kids who don't have Wi-Fi. We've got kids who don't have tech at home. We've got kids who, what Wi-Fi they do have, you got little sister who's watching Netflix and you got little brother who's playing the game. And meanwhile, you got a student who's trying to get on here and the Wi-Fi is crap. So we've lost our numbers in terms of like our big meetings have gone down, but man, the impactful conversations and the intimate time that we've been able to have has gone up. So we've seen a bunch of, maybe our big group meeting is instead of 50, maybe it's 30. But we've got, 10 different small groups going with different leaders where they're just leading kind of conversation circles, and that's gone through the roof.
This
and
is
so
all
I think,
virtual at this point, obviously.
What's that?
This is all virtual. That big
Yeah.
thing is going
Yep.
down to 10.
Yep. So Zoom, doing stuff like what we're doing right now.
Right.
Because one of the challenges that we have outside of COVID is that we're working with a population that generally doesn't have their own transportation. Whether it's because, mom's only going to give you a ride one way. Either she's dropping you off or she's picking you up, but she ain't coming out the house twice. And so, whether it's kids don't have a license or the ability to purchase a vehicle or whatever it is, transportation can be such a headache for us. And so, we were able to, capitalize on something like this of saying, hey, listen, if we're going to have a small group where we talk about, like we've got a small group where we just talk about the NBA, like let's not make it all out to be that it's got to be this huge, great depth. But we're just talking through life, like we're all anxious to see what this bubble in Orlando is going to look like, and so we've got one of our leaders who he's in a discussion circle where they get on and once a week they just talk about the NBA. And so I think you've got people who are craving that connection. You've got people who are craving that type of just any degree of normalcy of like, we would be talking about the NBA right now because we would be in the playoffs and
Right.
who's going against who and whatever. So I think coming out of this in terms of this upcoming school year, I don't know, man. Like I think you're going to see a hybrid. I think we're going to have to see a lot of attention brought to people's mental states. I think a lot of the stuff that we deal with, it's easy for us to suppress if we've got a normal routine of staying busy.
Right.
So if that means that if I can stay busy through, we've got some college leaders who, they're going to school 16 credits a semester, and then they're working 30 hours a week, and then they're volunteering with us. So normally they're able to stay really busy. And they're able to, if they start to feel a wave of a thought or of an emotion or something like that, they can bury it by staying busy. Well, they haven't been able to distract themselves a lot lately. You know what I'm saying? So like now these feelings of inadequacy or these feelings of being overwhelmed or these feelings of whatever, they're not able to be processed in a way that they're used to, which in fairness, the way that they're used to wasn't healthy in the first place.
If I could, with that, Patrick, there's a quote I heard. I just want to stay on that point. It said the hardest thing that a man and woman can do is sit alone in a room with their thoughts.
Yeah, man.
That's what we're being forced to do right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to add on that, you know, being a little transparent myself, I'm transitioning through a divorce after about 10 years. My 8-year-old daughter, you know, we're amicable, which is a good thing.
Sure.
No cars are being keyed up and nothing like that. But I just remember, Patrick, when you talk about the mental health, during the early part of it, I said to myself, I said, man, thank goodness I have a sense of identity. Thank goodness I have my organization that I can fall back on. Thank goodness I have these things, because I saw right then how a person can easily go to the brink. So when you add, like you spoke of, those couples unfortunately having these challenges, there probably was some underlying issues and this exacerbated it. But you add any issue anybody was having pre-COVID, and then what COVID does and what we're going to have to deal with as NGOs, non-governmental organizations after COVID, I mean, the fallout is going to be major. Do you expect to have a stretch on your resources once we get back to some form of normalcy or whatnot?
Yeah, I think to a degree we already have. I think if you're going to, excuse me, I think if you're going to be an organization that is really predicated on the idea of living life on life with young people.
Living life on life with young people. Talk about that for me.
Man, I think I love mentoring. I love the investment that can be made. I love how mutually beneficial mentoring can be. But sometimes it stops within the framework of a program. And sometimes if it's outside of whatever the specific parameters are of, okay, we get together on Tuesdays from 1 to 2. If it's outside of that, sometimes you see a drop off a little bit. And the way that we want to look at that and the way that we want to do relationships is to say, no, we're going to live life on life. And that means that I'm going to be transparent. That means that for me, as somebody who I may be in a position of, you know, perceived power of a student, and they may be coming to us for answers or guidance or whatever. If we're living life on life, that means that, like, I'm acknowledging that I'm just as much of a mess as you are. I'm acknowledging that I need just as much of these types of conversations as you do. I need just as much community as you guys do. And oftentimes life on like we just know too much now to know that sometimes life isn't so cookie cutter crystal clear that, okay, you sit on one end of the table, I sit on the other, and I pontificate towards you.
But Patrick, when you make that point about me acknowledging where I'm at as well, that's when the impact really happens.
Yeah, of course.
That young person says, okay, Huddleston dealt with this, Patrick dealt with this, okay. Yeah. And then I see how they're managing it. I mean, the only leaders that I have, when I read books about leaders and people going through stuff, I'm not so impressed about what they accomplish. I'm moved by what they go through.
Did you get through something?
Yeah. So why do, and I got to say this in the interest of time, Patrick, I see that you and I are going to have some more time to talk about different things. There's so many places we can go to. And what I like to do is keep it within the time frame, because I don't want people to get sticker shock when they see the number and not want to get it. So I'm not limiting our discussion. I'm just prolonging it for a long time. But I do want to ask you, why do you think many leaders, or why don't we always hear stories of vulnerability? Why are some of our leaders so less likely to be vulnerable to share a message to win these young people over?
Yeah, I think you've got some cultural implications. I think you've got some gender implications. I think for specifically for us as men, I think there have been seasons of our life where we have either been taught or it has been modeled in front of us, this form of toxic masculinity, to say, you know, hey, listen, we're hard, you know, like we got to be hard, we got to be tough, we've got to be all these types of things. I think oftentimes people don't acknowledge insecurity, right? And so if I'm insecure as a leader, if I'm insecure about my life, about my bank account, about my home, about whatever it may be, that's going to manifest in other ways. And so I think oftentimes you've got people in leadership who really don't know themselves well yet. They've got some sort of skill, they've got some sort of ability that somebody has identified in them and said, man, you could be this. but we haven't mentored that person. We haven't discipled that person. We haven't actually grown that person much. We've just acknowledged that they have a gift. And so we thrust them into the forefront of something without the undergirding of support and growth that needs to happen first. And so I think a lot of times, man, you've got, I mean, again, just as two men right now, like for so many years of our life, we've been told that we can't talk about our feelings, that we can't talk about our shortcomings. And whether that was explicitly said or it was just kind of, non-verbally communicated.
We never saw anybody do it.
Exactly.
So think to do it.
Exactly. I mean, like I'm one of those guys who, like, I grew up in a home, I'm grateful that mom and dad were in the same home, but for a lot of it, like, dad didn't talk about anything. Dad worked, dad came home, dad would have dinner, and dad would go to bed, like, and so at that point it was never like, hey, what's frustrating you about your day right now? Hey, what's, like, there was none of these types of conversations that, and my dad's gone through huge growth, man. It's awesome to see who he is today, because he's completely different. He's now asking questions. Hey, what does this mean? What is this about? He's now showing me at his age of 64 that he can be vulnerable. And so for me now at 34, I'm looking at that and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, it may have taken him a minute, but he's here now, and so, yeah, we didn't see that modeled. We didn't see that. I think oftentimes leaders don't want to be vulnerable because we have positioned ourselves to be the expert. And we've branded ourselves as an expert, and we've portrayed this image. Yeah, man. And that's the thing, is that if you're going to do any sort of youth development, man, I don't have time for experts. I don't care if you're, I don't care about any of that type of stuff. I just want to know, can you authentically and genuinely live your life in such a way that kids are going to naturally be attracted to want to be around you? We don't sit in rows and listen to pontification in real life. We do life. And so at that point, like if I want to teach a kid about budget stuff, I'm going to take him with me when we go to Meijer and I buy groceries. And I'm going to tell him, hey, listen, we're working with $80 today. And we need to make sure that we've got meals for this upcoming week and a half, these 10 days, or, whatever it is. And I'm giving him the money. I'm giving him the shopping list, and we're going to talk through it. And, hey, can we get the name brand this, or should we get the off brand this, whatever it is. And that's real life. Like, that's, like when my mom taught me how to do the dishes, she didn't just say, hey, you got to go do this. No, she pulled up a stool next to her, put a rag in my hand, and said, this is how I do it. Now you can do it. Right. And so at that point, it's just this idea of we need to model the lifestyle that we want kids to live. And oftentimes they see a lot more than they hear.
Yeah. Patrick, I just want to make a point, and I want you to kind of finish up with how we could learn more about Streets 517, sure, how we can support you, and whatever final comments you have. I just want to go back to one of the great points you just made about not needing experts. And again, that's kind of been the theme of our discussion. I think when people come from the outside business world, they look to experts to validate them. But I found my biggest influence comes when I'm working with the young people and we're working together, and I go, oh, man, I messed up on that. Like, oh, we got to do that again. Or when I kind of show that I'm, human, right there, the bond is for them, like, oh, okay, Huddleston, okay, well, this is how we go do it. Or like, my bad. Or you tell the kid, my mistake, I messed up. They're like, oh, their head explodes because they're so used to adults pounding perfection and expecting this, and they can't be that. So I wanted to highlight that. But Patrick, what great things you've shared, and I'm glad we had this time to talk. But with what we have left, just give people an overview of how they can respond to you. You did mention you're looking at getting more volunteers going forward. How did that work with COVID? But just give us some comments as we get ready to wrap up.
Yeah, real quick story just about exactly what you were just talking about really quick before I do some of the pluggables.
Sure.
We the last couple summers, we've taken a big group of students to a variety of different camps in the summer. Obviously that didn't happen this year with COVID and stuff like that. But I remember there's this young man, he just graduated from Sexton this year. And he's, in our line of work, we're not supposed to have favorite students. But we end up just really being connected to a couple more so than others. And that's normal. That's fine. But this guy, he and I, we can butt heads too. Like he really is just like my little brother. And sometimes, he gets a little mouthy. Sometimes I get a little too flexing on him or whatever it may be. And this last summer, there was a moment where we're standing kind of nose to nose. And I just said, listen, like, this is what it is. This is where you need to be. Boom, 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 boom. And he's just, like, he's all swolled up and he's, huffing and puffing in my face. And I was like, listen, bro, like, you can hit me if you want. Like, that's fine. But like, if you hit me, you better make sure you kill me, because then it's going to be. And so, I mean, it was hot. Like, it was really contested. And it was one of those moments where, like, it kind of de-escalated for a moment. And we've got a whole cabin full of boys who are just watching this like, oh shoot, these are big dudes. Like, I don't know how we're going to pull these guys apart if they really get to throwing them. And so later on that night, man, I'm beating myself up because I was like, man, I just acted like such an idiot. And I got so angry, and I shouldn't have, and I said stuff I shouldn't have. And so that night, when all of our guys were in the cabin, I looked at the young man and I said, hey, listen, for what happened earlier, I provoked you, I instigated you, I was poking at you, trying to get you to do something, and that was wrong. And I remember he looked at me and he was like, no, it's cool, it's fine. No, it's fine. And I was like, no, like, I need you to hear me. Like, I'm sorry, and I was wrong. And you could just tell he has never had an adult, let alone another man, really be able to sit there and be like, yo, like, I need to eat that because I was just an a-hole. I was this, and I'm sorry. And I need you to trust me when I tell you that that is out of character for me. And I hope we can be all right moving forward. And I mean, he was so uncomfortable. He had no idea what to, because again, that's just something that's so foreign to him. But that's the thing, like, that's what life is. Life is full of ups and downs, and real life is lived within those spaces of being able to own your mistakes and celebrate the victories. And so that's what life on life is. In terms of how people can get involved or support or help out Streets 517, our website is streets517.com. People can head over there. They can find out opportunities to volunteer. They can find out about opportunities to possibly partner with us financially. We are in a place right now where we have had to dip into some significant savings in order to help kind of get people, some necessities and some bills paid and stuff like that. So we've begun to dip into some funds that we would have liked to have saved. But again, that rainy day came a little sooner than we thought. So if people are interested in partnering with us financially, they can do that at streets517.com. If you're interested in volunteering, there's forms on our website that you can look at different ways that you can get plugged in. Love to have a conversation about how we might be able to partner people with local high school kids. So we definitely need more adults, that's for sure.
Right. We got Patrick Sauer here doing great things with Streets 517. He's consistent in the lives of young people, and going to be a great resource as we get ready for this new normal, man. I appreciate you. I'm glad we got a chance to sit down. And what we have to do in the coming weeks and months is loop back around, get an update on the state of affairs, and continue to see what we can do to help us. So thank you for being available and coming out.
Man, I appreciate you, Lindsay. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Absolutely.